Well, hello, I'm Judy Matesky, and I am here with our one simple recipe, hoping to get you one step closer to better health. I am a registered dietitian and a culinary nutritionist with Athens Nutrition, and today we're doing a one-pot meal, bean and barley chili. I thought it would be great for this week, for Halloween coming up on Thursday. That's why I'm coming to you on Tuesday. Thought I'd get this out to you ahead of time because this is like a great little one-pot meal you could put together and either give it to the kids before they head out for the night, or you can have it before your trick-or-treaters are, ringing your doorbell. So let's go ahead and get started. I have a Dutch oven here on the stove that I have about 1 tablespoon or so of olive oil in it, and I'm just going to turn the heat up a little bit. I just did my mise en place. I kind of got things ahead of time just to show you it's so easy. This is very pantry friendly. So we're using canned beans and we're using a lot of the spices that you probably already have in your pantry. So I pulled a lot of these things together, so we'll talk a little bit about them as we go along. But right now I have 1 large onion that I've chopped and about 2 carrots, give or take. The proportions here don't really matter that much. When you're making chili, you have a little bit more, a little bit less, it's going to be fine. But I just went ahead and chopped those just to save time. So these are going to go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and pop these in and get these going. So these are just going to take a few minutes just to, we're going to soften up the onions like you would if you're making chili, and then as well as the carrots. Now, carrots might not be a traditional thing that you might add to your chili. I love adding them. First of all, obviously, anytime we can get more vegetables in anything we're making, great. But also, I love that they bring just this background sweetness. So it sort of helps to balance, depending on how spicy you like your chili. I feel like it's nice to have something a little bit sweet. Sometimes I add corn to my chili as well for the same reason. It just lends a little bit of background sweetness that I just tend to like. Certainly, it's not traditional, and I wouldn't say this is really a traditional chili. It's more. I made it the last time I made it, my daughter was eating it. She's like, "This is actually awesome. It's chunky and thick enough to almost have it as a dip. So if you have like tortilla chips and you want to dip it, it's really good that way. So it's kind of like a cross between a chili and a stew, and depending on how much liquid you add, and we'll talk about that, but it could be a little bit more like a dip in a way. That's, it's kind of nice. But I just thought, getting into the time of the year where it's getting a little bit cooler, and I feel like it's always nice to have maybe another one-pot meal that you can either make in bulk, you can make this and freeze it, just so you have it and it's easy and you can pull it out as a weeknight-friendly meal. This is so easy, you can make it during the week. It's not like something you have to make on the weekend. So really, I timed myself, because sometimes when I do this prep ahead, I timed myself to see how long it really took me to chop the onions up and kind of gather the ingredients. It was about 15 minutes. I don't even know if it was quite that. So really fast and easy comes together. And we're just going to cook it. It's going to cook for about 30 minutes on the stove before you're going to serve it. All right, so as that's going around, I want to talk a little bit about why beans and barley from a nutritional perspective. And we all should, if we can, tolerate them, and you can add them to your diet. Beans and barley just bring two particular nutrients, but one that we're really impressed with, which is soluble fiber. And we all know we need to eat more fiber, good for a lot of things, but soluble fiber in particular is a type of fiber that's in a lot of different vegetables and some grains, but it's not as plentiful as our regular insoluble fiber that we think of when we're talking about wheat bran or some of the more grain-based fibers, which is fabulous too. But it's nice to get a little bit of the soluble fiber in as part of the mix. And beans are a phenomenal source of soluble fiber. They're a great source of overall fiber, but they have a nice component of that fiber to be soluble, and as well as barley. So the reason for that is that soluble fiber is a little bit interesting. It really is helpful as far as keeping our gut healthier, and the bacteria that's down there, as it digests, this healthy bacteria, as it digests the fiber, it puts off a compound called butyrate, which is anti-inflammatory. It's seen in the the sort of the side effect of having more soluble fiber in the diet almost acts like a natural GLP-1 agonist, like the obesity and blood sugar medications you're hearing a lot about. Well, our body actually can do its own, produce its own compounds that can help with reducing hunger and improving satiety. And soluble fiber is just one of those things that can be helpful. So it's really super helpful for the gut for a lot of different reasons. And it also is unique in that it forms a gel within the gut, and it actually helps to stop the absorption of cholesterol that might be present in the gut. So if you have elevated cholesterol, adding soluble fiber is a great way to help bring that, that LDL or that bad cholesterol down. All right, so lots of good reasons to add it. So we're doing it in the form of beans and barley. All right, so this is put down. Now, what we're going to do, the next step is we're going to add some spices. Oh, actually, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and add my garlic. This is, you know, you can go as garlic friendly as you want. I think the recipe calls for about 3 cloves. I think this is just a little bit more than that. And I went ahead and chopped my garlic ahead of time. You know, I have it here just to have things a little bit ready for you guys. But if you want to wait and chop your garlic, that's fine. If you chop your garlic ahead, it's going to get a little bit stronger. And that can be good or bad. Good being that when you chop your garlic ahead of time, it produces a compound called allicin, and that's actually healthy. That's a great compound that we want to have more of in our system as far as its anti-inflammatory anti-inflammatory benefits, but it also does make the garlic taste a little bit stronger. So if you like that, chop your garlic ahead of time. If you don't want your garlic quite as strong, if you just slice it thinly, that'll help. It doesn't release quite as much allicin. The more you chop it and the more you work with it, the more that allicin is going to be produced, which is good health-wise, but it does make the garlic taste a little bit stronger. All right. So my garlic, when I walked into the kitchen after I chopped this about 10, 20 minutes ago, I'm like, oh, I can really smell the garlic in the kitchen. All right. So this is going. Now, the spices that we're adding, I have a whole bunch in here, and this could be your favorite chili spice blend. It doesn't have to be this one, so you can use the spices that you like. This particular recipe, it has about 2 tablespoons of chili powder. It has about a teaspoon of oregano. It has about a tablespoon of cumin in it, some garlic powder, a little salt and pepper. It's really your favorite chili blend is fine. I have a couple of different seasonings that I use for a couple of different chilies that I make, but you can really mix and match them. I also added a little bit of smoked paprika, just because I kind of like that. And I'm not sure, this is some new chili powder. I don't know how spicy this chili powder is going to be, so I didn't add any extra red pepper flakes to this. So it just depends, again, how spicy you want that. So I'm going to go ahead and add them now. I'm going to add that spice blend now because I want this to just kind of saute together with the onions and the carrots that are in here. Just the more, if you can bring your spices in ahead of time before you add the liquid, it does help to bring out some of the natural oils within the spices, and it'll make them a little bit more fragrant and a little bit more flavorful. So you can give that a couple of minutes. I'm kind of rushing this a little bit here just to kind of move this along, but you kind of want to make sure when you're sauteing the onions and the carrots, you do want them to soften up a little bit. So, you know, you kind of want them to get a little bit softer. They'll continue to soften as they cook, you know, for the 30 minutes that this is going to cook. But it is nice to kind of get them a little bit of a head start. So I'm probably jumping the gun a little bit here, but that's fine. They'll break down. All right. So we have our spices in there, and we have our onions and our garlic and our carrots. Okay, the next step is to add a little bit of tomato. And normally I would add a 28-ounce can of whole tomatoes and be done with it. I didn't have the 28-ounce can. I had a small can of these cherry tomatoes that I think I talked about those last week. These are so good. They're amazing. I almost don't even want to use them in this chili because I'd rather use these to make a straight-up tomato sauce because they're so good. But it's what I had, so I'm going to go ahead and add those in. And then I think I don't want to waste what's in there. I'm going to add a little bit of the broth in here just to get the rest of it out. So I did have a little bit of strained tomatoes in my, these are just the Palmy brand. I'm going to add a little bit more, but you want about 28 ounces, give or take, of tomato. So I'm going to add a little bit of extra of this tomato puree. All right. And then I use the Better Than bouillon just because I find it so much easier to have this in my refrigerator than to keep, you know, the vacuum sealed cartons of broth in my pantry. So this is a reduced sodium vegetable bouillon, and I love it. I just usually you don't even have to mix it in water if the recipe is calling for broth. I just take, it's like a teaspoon of this per 8 ounces of water. I'll just add this directly to whatever I'm cooking and then add the water. So it's just so convenient. So I just went ahead though and just and kind of pulled this together. So it's about 2 cups. I'm going to pour some of this in my tomato can here. And I'm just going to kind of stir this around just to get the rest of the tomatoes that are in here. Just, again, limiting food waste as best we can, right? All right. And then I'm going to add the rest of the broth. All right. So that was about 28 ounces, give or take, of tomatoes and 2 cups of vegetable broth. Now I went vegetable just to keep this vegetarian. If you have chicken broth, that's fine, you know, whatever it is. I'm going to turn the heat up a little bit here. All right, so that's in. And then, let me just double check my recipe, make sure I'm following it, because it's pretty easy. You're just kind of layering these things on, giving it a little bit of time. Now this, at this point, you could cover this up and let it simmer for a while before you add the barley. I'm going to just go ahead and add the barley, but let's talk about, well, the beans and the barley. Let's just talk about the barley for a second. All right, so this is 1.5 cups of cooked barley, and I know a lot of you probably aren't familiar with using barley. It's just, you know, we're used to rice, now quinoa, and sometimes farro, but we hear about barley, but we don't often use it, and it's unfortunate because it is so good. It's so easy to cook. You can buy it. Every supermarket carries it in this bag, in the Goya brand. So this is so easy to find, buy it, keep it in your pantry. I happened to be in Whole Foods. They had this little bag of Italian barley. I'm not sure how different that would be than just regular barley, but this one does cook up quicker though. This only took supposedly only takes 12 minutes to cook. I used this brand to cook this, and it took about 20 to 25 minutes. And that might depend on what kind of barley you have, but give it, say, 20, 25 minutes to cook. And this was 1/2 cup of dry barley, and I added 1.5 cups of water. You could cook it in broth if you wanted to. I just cooked it in water, and it makes about 1.5 cups. So you want about 1.5 cups of cooked barley in this stew. It's not going to cook if you add it dry to the soup, to the pot. It's not going to work as well. You really want to cook this ahead of time. So I just did it real quick. Honestly, it takes 2 seconds. 20 minutes on the stove. You just boil some water. You cook it until it gets a little al dente because it has a very nice, barley has this amazing texture to it. It retains that texture. So and it has almost like a nutty, really kind of a nutty flavor. I love it just in things like this. It's good just as a side dish, maybe with some sauteed mushrooms and onions. You can eat it sweet, like a barley porridge, almost like instead of oatmeal. It's so good. So great source of that soluble fiber. So use it. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and add it now. So this is about 1.5 cups of cooked barley, but normally you could let this onion and carrot and tomato mixture kind of simmer for a little bit, maybe 20 minutes or so, and then you can add the barley and the beans. But I'm just going to put it all together just to kind of get things moving along. So in our beans, I have 3 different beans. I have black beans that I've drained and rinsed. I have white beans. So I just grabbed some cannellini beans. I grabbed some black beans, and then 15-ounce cans and kidney beans. Now the kidney beans and the black beans, my kidney beans are down here at the bottom. The kidney beans and the black beans are really 2 kind of like top shelf beans. All beans are great, but kidney beans and black beans, and because of the color, you get all extra compounds, plant compounds that help create that color and have that, that wonderful antioxidant benefit that we always talk about. But they are also particularly high in magnesium. And if you're a woman over 50, that's something we want to get more of in the diet. So kidney beans and black beans, good sources. So anyway, that's nice to have those two beans in the mix of your beans if you like them. So I'm going to go ahead and add them. That's, again, 3 cans, 3 15-ounce cans of beans. Your choice, but if you can do the black beans and the kidney beans, I would recommend that. All right, so I'm going to go ahead now, just stir this around, and then this, you're going to just at a low simmer for, 30 minutes or so. You know how, like, I feel like when you make chilies and stews, the longer they sit, the better. So this is going to be even better tomorrow. It'll be even better tonight for dinner, because that gives a chance for all those flavors to sort of mellow and marry. All right, let me just pull it over. I don't think these handles are a little bit hot. Let me see if I can open this up a little bit. All right, so let me show this to you. All right, so there's everything in there. So we've got all those beans and the tomatoes and the carrots. All right, so I'm gonna let this go, and then I'm gonna put the lid on it and let it kind of come up to a little bit of a full simmer, and then I'll turn it down a little bit. I'm gonna keep it slightly ajar. But then I'll fully cover it to let it finish cooking. All right, now, when it's done, there's so many different ways you can finish it. So, you're going to serve it in a bowl. I have a whole bunch of pickled jalapenos that I made from, we had so many jalapeno peppers in the garden this year. Just pickled these real quick. They're in my refrigerator. So serving it with maybe some pickled onions or pickled jalapeno. I love a dollop of just some Greek yogurt on top. Phenomenal. It's a great swap out for sour cream. Again, lowering saturated fat. Yogurt for sour cream is a great swap. You can use some fresh herbs on top of it. Doesn't always have to be cheese. I feel like we always tend to go towards cheese, but you can fresh herbs, pickled jalapenos, pickled onions. I even take some like tortilla chips, and you can just crunch those up and then sprinkle those on top. Maybe a little bit of avocado or some guacamole, or a little bit of guacamole, or salsa, or thinking that you get little cheese is fine, but I mean you don't always have to load everything up with cheese. So trying to think outside of that box. All right, so this would be a great meal for you for this week. It's great for Halloween, and it does freeze really well. So that's probably what I'm going to do with this. My husband's traveling, everybody's kind of traveling, so I'm going to probably freeze this so we can just have it a little bit later. But it's just a great, easy one-pot meal, and I love it because you only have to clean one pot now. Done. All right. So anyway, stay well till next week. We'll be back next Thursday. Today we're here Tuesday, so we're not going to be coming on live on Thursday, but we'll see you next week. All right. Stay well till then. Bye-bye.